Wallabies, All Blacks, Bledisloe to Eden Park this Sunday, 4 o'clock New Zealand time. It's fair to say the result a week ago has had people talking about just where these teams are at. Is Ian Foster the worst thing to happen to the All Blacks in a long time? Is Dave Rennie the saviour of Aussie rugby? I'll be honest with you, I was really happy with last week's result, but it's still just one game. Still just one game. I was pretty open with the fact that when they were appointing All Blacks coaches, I think I would have liked to have seen Robertson get the job, but I'll still give Fozzie a chance, 100%. And I've always been pretty vocal in support of wanting Aussie rugby to do well. Definitely that is the case with Rennie in charge. One game though. So we will see, man. I'm very pumped for this one. I have tickets, so Gazza and I will be going to this one. Not expensive tickets, because All Blacks tickets are very expensive. Second cheapest tickets, 100 New Zealand dollars each, not including processing fee. I don't know if in the scheme of things that's cheap or expensive. Compared to Super Rugby tickets, it is certainly rather pricey. But hey, man, international rugby with a crowd, I ain't complaining. It's been coming for a long time. We see many sports around the world where there's no fans in attendance. So let's just think ourselves blessed in the fact that we have international rugby on, fans at the ground, and a whole bunch of build up to this one. It should be a cracking game after that 16-all draw last week, in case you missed it. The last 5 games, given it was a draw, it kind of shifts. When you looked at last week, the previous 5 was 4-1 to the All Blacks. It now shifts to 3-1 of the last 5, with the most recent game being that draw. So just makes things look a little bit tighter on the board. However, when you average out the score over the last 5 games, it's still 31-19. So the All Blacks still have the edge over the Wallabies. Nobody's kidding themselves in that regard, I would say. And 1986 is the last time the Wallabies won at Eden Park. Now, that's a long time between drinks. I would imagine pretty much everybody playing was likely not even born at the time the Wallabies last won Eden Park. Eden Park is something of a fortress, and we don't lose many games there. So the challenge this weekend for the Wallabies is pretty real. I'll go over the Wallabies and the All Blacks sides in just a second, because both sides have made a handful of changes. But let me just hit you with a couple of Eden Park stat attack moments. Because, as I said, New Zealand at Eden Park is pretty good. And also New Zealand on the back of a loss, or a draw, I guess, on maybe a bad performance, tends to bounce back pretty well, and apparently quite often against Australia. So I'm looking at last year's 47-26 drubbing over there in Perth. Next week was 36-0 at Eden Park. I was there for that one. It was a bit of a letdown after the build-up of the week before. 2015, Australia win 27-19 in Sydney. The very next week, it's 41-13 to the All Blacks at Eden Park. Eden Park. And 12-all draw in 2014 in Sydney. The next week is 51-20 to the All Blacks. Guess where? Eden Park. Now, I'm not saying history is going to repeat itself. History is just that. Nobody's written in the stars what's going to happen on Sunday's game. All I'm saying is it's one game. So we'll see how things go. Do I want the Wallabies to do well? 100%. Do I want it to be a close game even though I'm going there and it's going to get my blood pressure up? 100%. But just keep that kind of stuff in context. So, yeah, we'll see how things go. All Blacks fans, still one game for Fozzie's All Blacks coaching career, and Wallabies fans likewise. Dave Rennie's only had the one. There we go. But the fact that people are excited about it is fantastic. The lineups. We'll start with the All Blacks. The All Blacks have got Moody, Coles, and Tuipulotu at the front row. So Coles is the only change. He swaps with Taylor, so one rides the pine and one gets the start. Pretty much the same. Tuipulotu and Vaa'i are the starting locks. Obviously, the big omission there is Sam Whitelock, who does not even make the bench because he's got concussion. So he's not going to be available for this one. Scott Barrett, though, helpfully does come in to the bench. So he's been out with an injury layoff for quite some time. So good to have Scotty Barrett there. Also, Laulala comes back in. He missed out for personal reasons right before the game last week. And Hodgman gets the nod ahead of Tuipulotu as well. So that's actually a fair few changes. And you lose so much experience with Whitelock and bringing in Vaa'i. So that's just how that is. But Barrett, certainly, if he's fit, is going to be very helpful on the bench. Frizell is 6, Kane is 7, and Savea is 8. So the same back row as last week. Kane with his tackles and turnovers was phenomenal. Frizell maybe will be looking to up his performance in terms of putting his mark on the game. We will see Sotutu continues on as your kind of loose forward replacement. Backs, you've got Smith and Mo'unga at 9 and 10. So they're continuing on with Richie, even though he got a bit of criticism last week. It's not like the All Blacks to kind of chop and change too much, although they have done so in another position, which I'll get to in a second. Perenara is your halfback reserve and potentially could cover 10 in a pinch, but I don't think so because they've got other guys who can do that. Midfield is Goodhue 12 and ALB at 13. I was talking to Gazza once the team was named that he would have preferred to see them the other way around. But I think Goodhue played every game of Aotearoa at 12, so that seems to just be where he's been getting more game time. So obviously ALB starts ahead of Rieko Ioane, who famously, didn't have his finest moment scoring an attempted scored try last week where he dropped the ball. So he is still in the squad, but he's on the bench. So maybe that's a bit of a punishment for him. Maybe just to take the spotlight off him. I don't know. I can't imagine the Eden Park faithful being too hard on him, seeing as he is a Blues man. Clarke gets a start. Speaking of Blues players, there's a bunch of Blues players in the team this week, to be fair. Blues legend Beauden Barrett at 15. Yes, that's a tongue-in-cheek comment. And Jordie Barrett is on the right wing. He copped a little bit of stick for last week's performance, but Fozzie wants him on the wing, so he is on the wing. D-Mac drops to the bench with Bodie being back fit. George Bridge is injured. He's got a torn pectoral muscle, so he's out for 6 months. Hence, Clarke's inclusion. But to be fair, Clarke looked good off the bench last week, so it's kind of nice to see him in anyway. Sever Reese, Tyrell Lomax have both been told to go play Mitre 10 Cup for a week, so they are kind of free to do what they're going to do. So, yeah, that's the All Blacks 23. A fair few changes, you'd have to say. It's a little bit of chopping, a little bit of changing. We'll see how they go. The Wallabies, they've made some changes as well. Slipper, Paenga-Amosa, and Tupou is the front row. So Faenga is out of the matchday 23. And with some of the Wallabies line-out struggles, that may be part of the reason. So Paenga-Amosa gets the nod there. Salakaia-Loto and Phillip continue on in the locks. And, man, Phillip was awesome last week. So let's hope he can kind of keep things up. And these guys may be looking to put a bit of pressure on Vaa'i as well on the other side. Forward replacements, you got Uelisi, Sio Alaalatoa, and Simmons. So pretty much the same as last week. The back row changes a little bit though because Hannigan comes into the lineup. Harry Wilson shifts to 8 and Michael Hooper continues on at 7. So Pete Samu drops out of the 23 entirely. Hannigan's the guy who comes in. Wilson shifts from 6 to 8. Hooper's the same. Also Liam Wright comes in on the bench. So there's no Rob Valtini this week. He's another one that maybe off the bench wasn't quite able to add a bit of punch. So they've added a bit more kind of breakdown skills there with Liam Wright. Hannigan, you'd have to say, and I did a video about Hannigan's inclusion into the Wallabies squad because he's a guy who gets a lot of stick from Wallabies fans as well. One area of his game that was very, very good, even though he played lock all through Super Rugby AU, was his lineouts. His lineouts were phenomenal. So it looks like the two Wallabies changes in terms of Paenga-Amosa and Hannigan, maybe to strengthen that lineout ball, and the fact that they've got a pretty inexperienced lock on the New Zealand side maybe adds to that fact as well. Like Hannigan's lineout steals were really good. He had really good numbers in that area, so they may be looking to use him as another option on defensive lineouts. White and Jock continue. That's James O'Connor, 9 and 10. Tamua and Paisame still 12-13. Korobidi, Banks and Daugunu still the back three, so no changes to the back line in terms of the starting team. Man, Daugunu had a hell of a debut, didn't he? Doesn't get a lot better than that, and Korobidi is just an absolute beast. They've still got Gordon on the bench. Petaya comes in, so he's back fit, and they've got Reece Hodge there as well. So Lolasio is the man who drops out. He didn't actually come on last week anyway, but he drops out of the match 23 with Petaya being able to cover kind of the midfield and the outside backs. Hodge covers pretty much the entire back line as well. See if he's got that big old kicking boot of his on this week. But yeah, man, 2 very, very good looking teams. I'm still predicting an All Blacks win, but I was predicting All Blacks to win last week, and look what happened. So who knows? The TAB here in New Zealand, the bookies, have still got New Zealand by 15 points, which is a similar margin to what they had last week. And the last week might have been 16 or 17, but it's a pretty similar margin. So the Wallabies are not being given much of a chance. I hope it is closer than that. As the guy who went to 36-0 last year, as fun as that is, I prefer a close game. I enjoyed the draw last week, even if it ended a bit, neither side was really that happy with it. It's still nice to have a game that still goes past 80 minutes and you're still not sure who's going to win it right at the death. A kick goes off the post, man. Like, phenomenal stuff. But that recent record does speak to New Zealand bouncing back pretty well after a poor performance. I wouldn't want Wallabies people to start, throwing their hands in the air after 1 week. And I also wouldn't want All Blacks fans to get too down on Foster based on that first game. So we'll see, man. It's only 1 game, but we'll soon double that number. If Foster lost that game, man, his reputation may be kind of done. I don't know if that's recoverable. That's a hell of a record that New Zealand have got at Eden Park. But it certainly it'd make the Bledisloe pretty exciting, wouldn't it? But yeah, either way, with that first draw, the Bledisloe is very exciting. International rugby. It's the All Blacks, it's the Wallabies, it's 4 o'clock New Zealand time on Sunday. Should be a cracking game. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comments, how you reckon this one is going to go. It's on Sky Sport here in New Zealand, Sky Sports UK, Supersport, KO and Foxtel over in Oz. If you haven't worked out how you're going to watch it, it's on ESPN Plus, and there's a pretty nifty trick you can do to watch it with ESPN Plus, to be fair, but I'll do that after the video. Otherwise, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later. Alright guys, how are you going to watch the game this weekend? If you haven't sorted it out, ESPN Plus is the one I recommend. You can see here it's like $5.99 a month, and you can cancel anytime. So, ESPN.com/ESPN Plus. If you're in the States, that's fine. You can just jump straight on and access it this way. If you're like me and you're outside the States, that's not going to work. When you try to go to this page, you'll get an error unless you're using a VPN. You can see I'm using ExpressVPN and I'm connected to Los Angeles. So when I go to the sign up or I go to watch or anything, it lets me get on basically because it thinks I'm in the States. So you can see ESPN Plus, if I type in rugby on their upcoming events, it's got Bledisloe this Sunday in English and in Spanish apparently. And if you want to watch it on demand, so you don't want to watch it live, you can also watch it. Oh, this is last week's game. You can also watch it on demand. So yeah, the VPN I'm using here is ExpressVPN. I don't think it matters which VPN you use, although I think some are better than others in terms of being able to get the product to work basically. So the one I use is ExpressVPN. It's always worked for me. I'll put a link to their site down in the description. So if you guys want to use ExpressVPN, just connect to an American server when you go over to ESPN Plus, and you should be golden. But yeah, you guys let me know how you go. If you do use it, let me know if it's working well for you. I've only had good feedback on it so far. ExpressVPN does do like a 30-day money-back guarantee in case it doesn't work for you. So that's kind of like, I guess, a bit of protection there as well. So yeah, but cheers guys. I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.